Yeah. Okay. It is now 5:30. Call this meeting to order. Agenda item number 1, area variance 57 and 59 Greenbush Street. The applicant, Thomas Scheffler, owner of the property located at 59 Greenbush, seeks a line adjustment with his neighbor at 57 Greenbush Street. Proposed annexation would expand upon a non-conforming use without approval of an area variance. If the area variance is approved, Mr. Scheffler will seek lot consolidation approval by the planning commission. Approval of an area variance for 57 Greenbush Street property to be annexed would be conditional based upon approval of the lot consolidation. Is anybody here to speak on that?
First off, before Mr. Scheffler speaks, I just wanted to add that this has been approved by the county. We just haven't received the paperwork back.
Okay, so it's been by county planning commission?
Yes.
Okay. If you're here to speak on that, can you go up to the podium for me? Sign in. Do we have a sheet up there to sign in?
I did sign it.
Okay. And just state your name when you start would be.
Sure. Thomas Scheffler.
Thank you. And tell us about what you're trying to get done here.
Just trying to purchase the portion of the neighbor's yard, including his barn, just for extra storage.
For extra storage? Okay.
And then you're going to, I think I read it correctly, you're gonna merge.
Yes, the two lots.
Annexation. So you'll record a new deed with the property you own and the.
And the annex.
And a new legal description.
Correct. It's sure.
So it's existing non-conforming, which,
Yeah, so this is a weird one. These are the way that these are supposed to be done.
right,
That's it. Mr. Scheffler's lot is pre-existing non-conforming because of, he doesn't have the vegetative strip on the north side of the property,
okay,
and he has issues with the front yard. I believe the side yard as well.
okay, so on the north side, so this is across the street from
Show me what you're talking about.
the jail, maybe?
Cause I was looking at the other day.
Yeah.
I sure can. Give up here. Point it out.
So there's no vegetative strip here, this is all dry.
Right,
So that's like, area variance one. Side yard setback, I believe, what did it
yeah, I
say?
was just looking at the, there should know.
Right up front, most of it. Yeah. So anything in the yellow.
Get it better.
Minimum front yard, no side yard, rear yard. That makes no sense. And that.
So
that's all I think.
looking at from the jail, so across this side here has all driveway.
I took some extra photos too.
So if you go, if you don't mind me getting around.
No.
Much easier to understand when he looked it that way, so.
You go to the paperwork, anything in yellow, we're gonna need variances for. it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, I've noticed it's like, it's not that unusual in the city to have these
That's
because,
why whenever there's action, you're gonna start to see a lot more, and you have, right? You can see a lot more area variances,
Yeah, that's good.
because this is the way it's supposed to be done.
Yep.
Whenever there's an action.
3.8, so 10, 18, this is not really that on the question. So,
Basically, he cannot do the action because it would be expanding on non-conforming use until you approve the area variance.
right,
Once you approve this area variance, you move on to the next one, under the time, I guess.
yeah, so we've got, because we have minimum lot width, which existing non-conforming, that one is before and after is really doesn't change because the overall width 37 feet even with the we're 18 and 18 on the minimum front yard. That's the same. We are minimum side yard is going from 3. It actually is bigger after 3.8 feet to 7 feet. Then we go from, that's 11 feet to 11 feet in the minimum rear yard, so. In terms of numbers, the after is actually better than the before.
And then he's going to record a new deed.
Right. So the property with the new deed will be, it'll still be non-conforming in a couple of ways, because there's no way that you can physically get to 50 feet from to 25 feet from the 18 or 25 feet from the 11, because you'd have to tear the house down.
Yeah, those that are made, but.
Right. I mean, this looks good to me. Does anybody else have any questions for him?
No, after I see now what he's
Yeah.
gonna do there, I'm good to go.
Okay, I guess we don't have any questions for you, so if I get a motion to close the public hearing,
I move. to close the public hearing.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go through my questions here, guys, while we're,
So you still gotta go through 57.
we gotta go through.
That's all one, that's all one. Because 57 is a little different. So 57 is gonna need it after you do the,
Okay, so I'm seeing 59 in the one bundle here.
it's all in there.
It's all together. Okay. I've got Pendleton.
Oh, I see about it.
Okay, so what do we got on 57? That's the 4-foot native, the vegetative strip.
So that, the 4-foot vegetative strip will not be on the south side, instead of the north side.
Right.
And then you're gonna have lot coverage and minimum rear yard, minimum front yard. Side yard.
So I'm looking at,
Everything's good.
what am I looking at?
There should be another area where you're packet in that same thing.
Yellow.
Okay,
It is.
but I don't think we have a problem with the 57 either. It's just coming up with the wording for it.
There's not another area variance sheet in there for 57? It was all in one packet.
I don't see it. Okay, that goes from 59 and it has this,
And 92.
and then the 92 penny.
It's all in the same folder, with all one action, so it should be all, it's not in a separate page. It all should be in that front thing.
I do not see it.
There should be no area variance one in there.
Yeah, because if we have to do two, we should get them together right now, because 59, I'm pretty set with that one. And then we have the residential bulk requirements for 59, and there's nothing for 57.
No.
Is, for this agenda, and we have 11 pages.
Let's see.
So,
59.
$7.59.
Hold on,
I have 11 pages.
she forgot to make copies.
Okay, so we just need that other one that's gonna go along with this one, and then we can, do we do, we'd have to grant 2 area variances on this, correct?
Yeah.
So that's what, that's
First
what,
one.
okay.
And
So-
would we have to require the thing that he's going to do anyways, that he said, and that is to merge the deed?
Well, that's really, that's a new plat.
Yeah.
The planning commission will do it. It's go to
Oh,
planning
okay.
commission.
Yeah, that's, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, while we're waiting for the copies on the other one, seeing as we have to do this twice, we're gonna have to go through the questions twice. So let me do that on this one. We closed the public,
Yeah, start on.
we closed the public hearing on 59. Okay, so let's go down through and then somebody can quit.
I'll modify that.
yeah.
and Say that I.
Following tests will be considered by the zoning board of appeals to determine whether the variance in weighing, granting the, or denial of the area variance request. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to the nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. No. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. No. Whether the area variance is substantial. No, I'm just actually. It's getting improved. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district? No. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Yeah, we don't have to verse these. So I'd say that's a yes. So you got 4 no's and a yes. Mr. Jewett. We'll move to approve as written. Greenbush. All those in favor? Okay. 1,
So she just went down to me.
to get copies. Okay.
So essentially, just in a quick nutshell for 57. Because you just cut that lot basically in half,
Yeah.
it's gonna create. So it has that south side 300-85 non-vegetative strip and the side yard. Has the front yard, and now it has a backyard and lot coverage issues, lot size and lot coverage issues. So this is gonna create a whole
Different, yeah.
bunch of, but. So this one, just to give you a heads up, you have to approve pending. Because this is, so you want to approve it, but don't, somehow, this isn't gonna happen unless the planning commission. Approve the,
Subject to planning commission approval.
of the subdivision.
Right, and it says it right in the application too. It was written that way, that it's pending approval of the,
Okay.
Yeah, so for the decision sheet, I inserted approval of an area variance for 57 Greenbush Street. The property to be annexed would be conditional based on approval of the lot consolidation.
yes,
That's
And he's well ahead of, there you go.
yes. There's that, and then this other one's gonna have, it's gonna shift our boundary to the other side because it's being annexed in, and then we're gonna have to add back, so. Yeah. Well, thanks for pointing out that we were missing the part we're missing, because this would have been an extra trip for this year.
3 blocks away.
Like you didn't walk here.
So I live.
Did you walk across the park?
Yeah. It's not far.
Oh, yeah, that was me making all the noise in October, but that was me running all the sound on that stage for you. Your own personal show.
So they all kind of come out.
Yep. So we're in a little bit of a
Village design,
holding pattern here.
But it's,
you know, it was designed with 2 stories.
well, I remember back days where council was.
Interior structure framing of it a lot.
Yeah.
You have anything to do, but it's fully well.
What was it when they maybe we're in jail?
Yeah, or they were talking about, they do the jail elsewhere, but this was originally.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 2 stories.
These are for the next one. But it was designed to be on the hill. If you do, you have to house everybody elsewhere, and it costs almost $3-4 million.
Yeah, correct.
Even.
Oh, this is for company. Thank you. Well, I've been home for a day. I'm ready to go back.
Came home on a good day, it's 50 degrees
I know.
outside. So you brought the warm weather back with you, huh?
Well, no, I woke up yesterday morning in Greensboro, North Carolina with a frozen car. I had to scrape my windshield off.
That second picture has the 2-meter fence.
I couldn't believe it. And everybody was apologizing for the weather down there. It's like 70 degrees because it was like, 80.
Yeah.
It's not the whole time 70. not like it was on the beach district anyway.
Still.
So that means. So in all reality, this should have been 2 agenda items, but
It should, but it's the same.
Yeah.
The county had it on one item.
well, then we'll just do it like that, too. We'll just approve them both separately, but
You could have done two.
yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sometimes those things gets. The paper gets stuff.
Let's take a quick gander through this. This is nice paper. So we minimum lot, we got lot size. Minimum front yard is not conforming the same, the minimum rear yard has reduced, okay, so, yeah, there's this. And then your coverage. But then once they consolidate the two, all those numbers change.
Because if you notice, there's one side there that is already not conforming, and then there's one side there after the change.
Right. But then once we combine the entire square footage of both of these 59, 57, we put those together, then we have a different percentage altogether.
Well, that's for 59,
Right.
but that was also,
Now, which, I know this is probably not a completely irrelevant question, but when they consolidate the two together, does one of the numbers disappear? Just like,
no, they're not consolidating the whole lot, just consolidating half. If you look at that
yeah,
property there,
yep,
he's essentially cutting 57 in half.
yeah, it's on 57 and a half. I like that picture came out. It's a nice representation of what's going on.
So the addresses will still exist, you just cut
Yeah.
57.
And there's no problem accessing it from the
No, there's
driveway
not.
on the 59 side. I noticed that on the other satellite.
Yeah, the rear of the
Right.
garage.
So you don't need to extend, that's a weird picture because of the shading. You don't have to extend the drive, you don't have to extend the driveway to get to that garage or anything, right?
No.
Okay.
I have some other photos.
Okay. No, I'm just thinking, because if it was like, if it ends up on an island, that would require more.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, sure.
So this is the access behind the garage. So this is looking at ahead,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
shared driveway,
Okay.
and then that.
Yeah, we don't have, yeah, as long as we don't have to pave more, because then it would change our, green space. So those numbers that we see are not gonna, he has access to the garage. Okay,
Yeah, so that's a better photo.
yeah, that one makes a whole lot of questions. For my simple mind. Yes, I did. I like shape. Okay. Okay, so we're on so the public hearing, for 57 Greenbush is not open. I don't think there's anything else he needs to explain to us. Do we have any questions for him on 57?
Now that we have everything,
Okay, so, that's the case. Roy's already explained it quite well. If I can get a motion to close the public hearing,
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. Okay, then I go through our questions
57.
for 57. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. No, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than area variance. No, whether requested variance is substantial. This one, it's after lots, after it's consolidated. Yeah.
Kind of a lot.
It's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
on
a
this
pretty,
one. Yeah. Yes. Whether proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environmental conditions in the neighborhood. No, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. That is also, I'm gonna say that's a yes. So we got no, no, yes, no, yes on that. Mr. Jewett? Okay. We entertain a motion on that.
Make motion to approve as written.
Okay, I have a motion,
I'll second.
Tom seconds it, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
57.
it's for 57. Okay, so you are all set.
We'll just have you,
Steve, and then, so this is. I'll make a chance to say this, same time, 5:30.
You're very correct. The one step, once the planning commission. If it's approved, you gotta go get 2 new. Surveys. done.
Right.
And then get those to me so I can get that.
Okay, yep,
Because it might be, so you've already acquired the property?
I have not. Oh, wait.
Okay, because I wanted the date of acquisition, so
Yeah, that should be 04.
24. Yeah. It says 20.
Oh, the date of,
Yeah.
this acquisition?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's,
maybe they just put it in projected.
yeah,
I just wondered.
I think, right.
so if you just sign, there's 2 copies here.
Well, that's when he got his property.
Then,
Well, my property,
Is that
that's
two county
that
page?
should have been.
It says 2024.
I mean.
It's,
Okay.
I purchased it in 04.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so make sure we correct that.
Already correct, I already took care of it.
Oh, okay.
I just did it on the face.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't want to have any problems.
Actually, how many thought that?
So, we're gonna have him on the, planning. Okay. Again, on, March 4th,
We're trying to get these things flowing. Better go. We're good. Thank you very much. Aren't they? Okay.
And a shot.
Agenda item number 2, use variance for 92 Hamilton Street, applicant Alan Wilkinson seeks to use, use variance to convert a single family dwelling. We got that misspelled. To a 2-family dwelling in an R1 zoning district.
So you tabled this the last meeting,
Right.
and you had me do an inspection.
Yes.
There's the pictures from my inspection. You have my recommendation written, my written recommendation. I just handed it to you this morning.
Handed out this.
I mean, this evening.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is just my recommendation. It should not affect your decision in any way.
I guess I'll then ask AJ, one of the things we wanted to look at was,
Do you want to use agent?
Yep,
yeah, because because Mr. Williams acquired this property from the city, had
And I did have a chance to look not only at the bargain and sale deed, which would have been the foreclosure deed from the city to Mr. Wilkinson, as well as the preceding deeds dating back to 1962, which is as far as I was able to go. There are no deed restrictions as to use or zoning for this particular property. That is not uncommon, but it's really just, and it doesn't really have to be with respect to foreclosure, but a conveying, a grantor can, tie restrictions to the use, but that's not the case here.
Yeah, it's generally something that I saw when more commercial properties, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Restricting when you foreclose on a commercial property, you want to have some kind of oversight over what goes in, given the latitude of what's permitted usually under that type of zoning. But in this situation, I don't think.
That's absolutely right. That is the common scenario commercially, but in any event, that's not the case here in these particular deeds.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and my other question, AJ, is when we sold this property, did we have the understanding and knowledge that it was being used as a two-family at the time?
This particular property?
Yeah.
Well, I'll put it this way. 92 Pendleton has always been classified as a single family home, as far as I can tell, at the New York State level and locally as well for taxing purposes. It's property code class 210, and that's single family home. It appears to have been constructed as a single family home. I had a hard time going back all that way, but I can't find anything where this was classified or used as a two-family residence, at least through 1962.
Okay, and when we took possession of this home through the foreclosure status, was there any inspections or anything at that time of this premises when we took possession before we put it up for sale?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just getting that paperwork.
Right. Yeah, because that's my concern. If we had the understanding and knowledge that we had a parcel that we took possession of and we were putting it on the books and it was put on the books and sold with the understanding that it was two family,
Right. Yeah,
Well, I would put it this way, whether I don't have any knowledge to that effect, but when the city sold this to Mr. Wilkinson, its property code class remained single family. He absorbed this property and his peers with the understanding that the use was single family residence.
Right. Was he able to inspect the property prior to his purchase?
That would be that's ultimately a conversation between the selling entity at the time and the buyer. I don't know. Oftentimes, these are auctionable properties, so probably not if that's the way that this was sold. You kind of buy as is, you get what you get. It appears that there's only 1 meter on the property.
No, there's 2 meters.
There's 2 meters.
Oh, then I'm looking at the wrong house, but but again, like I think that he's seeking a use variance here. And the reason for that being a use variance, my understanding is that the understood use by the owner right now is that it's a single family home and it's been operating as a single family home. And maybe you guys know different, that it's been being used as a 2-family residence.
It is, yeah. When Roy did his inspection of the building, it was being used as a 2-family residence with one of the residents, I think, being in there for quite some time.
Right. And we have photos of the inspection. We have 2 meters.
Yeah, we have photos of the inspection, 2 meters, 2 kitchens.
Actually, it's got 2.5
what I would say, and this you got a question posed related to that Floral Ave property that the Common Council had had contemplated. So I'll just kind of walk you through that scenario, and maybe it'll kind of give you an idea of, you know, your options here. But the issue with that property is that it was constructed as a 2-family home. It was always a 2-family home. It's classified as a 2-family home for taxing purposes. That had
Right.
never. And for whatever reason, when that zoning district got put into place, that property got overlooked despite the consistent use.
Right.
And when you wade through the use variance factor test, even though that's not exactly the route that we took here, because it just wasn't, it was zoned as a single family home, but it was built and always used as a 2-family
Right.
for whatever reason. Even on the taxing end of it, for whatever reason, that's not the case here. I don't think that that's necessarily dispositive. I think that that's the purpose of a use variance application. And it does appear that there are other 2-family, multifamily properties on that street, Pendleton. But the issue with Floral is that any other use was so limited that they were really looking for an exemption. It almost met the definition of non-conforming, right? Like this was always a 2-family home that had never changed for whatever reason. At some point, the designating entity classified as a single family home, despite the way it was built, despite the use that it always had. That's a residential neighborhood, but that house was always that way. I don't know if that's the case here. You guys have more information in front of you than I do, but the issue I think is that at what point did this become a 2-family home, Pendleton, and how long has it been used that way? And was it used that way at the time Mr. Wilkinson absorbed title to it? If that is the case, it kind of sounds to me like it's a similar situation, regardless of whether the city was involved in the sale or not.
Right.
But there's nothing in the deed that says this use or the other use. It's peculiar that this one's still classified as a single family home and a single family.
Well,
Although, and I don't know where the zoning line falls. Roy, maybe you could weigh in, because I think that the next property over is a 2-family or multifamily structure.
Yeah, it's next door is a 2-family.
Well, and I also think what we can do, because there are 2 meters on there, I think we can find out from the power authority when that second meter was attached.
Right.
I do that all the time at my current position.
Right. And that's kind of something, that's a great point, and I wouldn't say that this existed at the time that the city absorbed it. It's hard to tell, because that's a kind of a, Roy, maybe you could speak to that a little more, but, I think it would be an interesting question to Mr. Wilkinson, whether or not he had that done. I don't know. If the conversion happened after the acquisition, but
All right.
this particular property is ripe for use variance analysis, given where it's located, given the nature of the other properties in the area. I think that this is a perfect question posed to the zoning board. What's the right use for this particular property, given its location, given the way it's built? If it was a single family home and it was converted into a 2-family home, and I don't know that's the case, but I would imagine building permits were required.
Right.
But, putting Floral on, next to this property, the differences that I see were the constant classifications for Floral and, the same use throughout its existence, regardless of the zoning district in which it sits. And on paper, that's not what Pendleton appears to be. But
well,
that's
in the previous, meeting, if I'm not mistaken, I remember Mr. Wilkinson, had indicated that there was obvious areas where there was plumbing and electrical work that had clearly separated. It was clearly, on site as 2 units. And that was one of the things that was, what we could, I guess, look at as a hardship. If we said, now you gotta merge from, utilities and infrastructure in the building back to what would be commonplace for a single family,
And that's kind of the argument that was made to the common council, with
Yeah.
respect to oral, you know, it's like the way that structure existed created a limited use, and, you know, to convert it into what is an allowable use in that zoning district would be beyond
yeah.
reason, and it would create a vacant property, you know, in a property that was already derelict. And
Yeah,
then
I
that's
would
not,
see that as a hardship, you know, an example of a hardship, on the part of the applicant, if he was to say, if for no other reason.
and for what, you know, and I know that I'm sure that one of the concerns here is precedent.
Yeah.
Throughout the
Yeah.
city, but use variances should always be on a case by case basis, right?
Yep.
You know, should never be, you know, and maybe you utilize some arguments, you know, this has happened in the past, and, you know, use a similar property, but that individual analysis should always occur based on
Yeah.
those questions, based on the location, you know, just
Yeah.
because someone was allowed to do it on one street doesn't mean that someone should be allowed to do it on another street just because they're
Case by case.
Yep.
Or vice versa, right? So,
correct.
with this being said, I mean, this is saying it's an R1. We don't want to do micro zoning by any means here, but they're right next to another multi-unit building.
Yeah, and I was trying to blow up the zoning map. It would make me either as use variance was granted there, or that's the line. You know, I'm not sure. It's hard to tell on this map on my computer screen, but, you know, I think that, like, you, and, you know, you guys have already kind of informally gone through that factor test with respect to this property. Hardship created, character of the neighborhood, you know, things like that. And again, this is definitely your decision to make. I'm only trying to give you facts to make that decision. And the facts are, for whatever reason, this one has always been zoned or deemed a single family residence. At some point that tells me that it was. You know, it's not just a categorized as a 2-family residence that finds itself in a single family zone because that zoning district changed, like Floral. You know,
Right.
this one's always been known as a 2-family, or excuse me, single family. Regardless of the zoning district, versus Floral, which, you know, I don't want to say the word overlooked, but that seems to be the case. Whenever the comprehensive plan rezoned things, that 2-family home was just sitting there. It was probably in good shape at the time, and no one noticed.
Well,
And, you know, and again, this one only changed hands, like the city, the tax sale in 2013. You know, there was a familial conveyance in 1988, but I would imagine it was parents to a child. But the parent, if it was the parents, they bought in 63, conveyed it to, you know, theoretically a child in 1988 to, or excuse me, they conveyed it to a child in 1963 who conveyed it to the foreclosing party in 1988. It only changed hands truly twice in 60 years, including the city's involvement. So, you know, that's pretty telling to me that if, you know, I think, you know, character of the neighborhood is going to be a big factor here. And you guys have kind of already made those arguments. But, you know, that's why this process exists. But the hardship, and I was unaware that he's been renting it as a 2-family home for some time. I would imagine that it also requires rental permits and
that's true. That's another one. That's
zoning occupancy. So that could probably, you know, and if he's not complying with that process, that's another issue, but. You know, but the question I would ask if I was in your shoes is why now? You know, what gives rise to this application other than compliance? But
Well, he answered that the last meeting. He's wanted to get it into the right. He wants to be able to sell it as a 2-family or as a multi-family. Is the reasoning that he's going through all of this right now.
a multi-family?
Yeah.
just 2 family.
Yeah, two family.
Okay. Just the way our code is out, they distinguish between two family and multifamily.
Yeah, it's a two family, yeah.
So I think it would be important to make that distinction. You know, whether in the event that this use variance is granted, because as you guys know, any type of variance like this would track with the property. It would remain an allowable use.
Well, yeah.
Roy, are there rental permits associated with this property?
Okay, so in 1952,
Oh, I didn't go back that far.
in 1952 in the property files, it had 3 kitchenettes and 3 apartments.
Huh. You know, that's pretty, I think that's pretty important information. I don't know when this property was constructed. But I think that would be an important detail for your consideration, how it was constructed regardless of the zoning district. Or was
Right.
it converted into a property like that at some point? I don't know.
Yeah, because he even has the owner's name here, last name of Jackson. 2 bathrooms, 2 water closets, 3 kitchenettes. And 3 apartments.
Interesting.
9 living,
9 living.
9 living rooms.
unless they.
They considered every area living.
Probably
area.
A living area, yep, so those are living areas, because they don't have any bedrooms.
No.
Bathrooms and-
I think that you guys have enough information to make a thorough analysis using the use variance test.
Yeah,
But if you have any questions for me, I'll stick
Okay.
around.
Thanks, AJ.
Right.
Thanks, AJ.
Thanks.
yeah, so this is not gonna be the same as pool.
I think, and totally, that all differences there.
And not to interrupt, but Flora was a little different because they weren't seeking a use variance. They were really seeking an exemption or a declaration that this was always a 2-family home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the difference.
Because it was 2 family, then it went to 1 family due to being
Right.
empty, for then
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
So that is essentially what happened with this one too. This one went
Right.
vacant.
Necessary because of the way
But
it's
this one was once 2 family.
classified. Like
This
as far
one went vacant. I mean, you can see it's 1 point multiple. This went vacant, same thing, and then it went foreclosed, he bought it.
But I mean, was it always listed as a single family?
yeah,
But it was
like-
classified at the state, like for taxing purposes, as a single family home, which was a big distinction for the council. For Floral, like that,
Yeah.
that other one was always a 2-family home for, record recording.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, didn't check that.
Deeds on this all the way back to 52.
AJ, we gone.
I can, what was the name of that one?
The last name of the owner was Jackson.
Jackson.
Oh, boy.
That is our.
It's a little different process. But the county clerk does a good job recording.
Yeah, property 92 Pendleton, so this looks like what, Sam Jackson? Address owner 92 Pendleton, so the owner was living there,
Middle initial L.
It looks like R maybe?
maybe in front.
Oh, I was sorry.
No, it's not laden with profanity.
It's not Samuel L. Jackson. That's
No, it's not.
Emmanuel. Lands being conveyed to Angelo and Emmanuel Manich by Minnie Carpenter, dated October 8, 1954. Recorded in the county clerk's 231 at 297. Okay. And then
If we do a use variance on this, he sells the property, the next owner have to apply for use variance again, or does that go along? It goes along.
You guys, but like the way these deeds track is that in 1954,
Minnie Carpenter. Sold this property to the Miniches. And the sale before that was in 1925. But going back that far, it could be like there could have been subdivisions that went unrecorded. That's not uncommon. Like before. Oh, part of a premises. Yeah, there was a subdivision. 92 and 94 were one property at one time.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Back in the 20s. So
That would account for
It says right here in the 1952 filing, it says use apartment. It says it right there.
yep.
Even straddles the definition we have.
The party are remain in the apartment now occupied on said premises rent free, and so the selling party in this deed retained a life use to stay in one of the apartments in 1954. So these were always, it appears.
Yeah.
These.
Yeah, just reading this a little bit more closely, once it was pointed out by Roy that this was 1952 document, we're looking at, they're claiming to be occupied by 8 people.
This is actually less density as a two.
It's less density as a 2-family than it was as 3. And it doesn't have 3, it looks like it has a blank, so like at one time it had 3 meters.
Oh, at one time.
One time it had 3 meters, now it has 2. So it's less density now.
How many furnaces are you?
Alan, how many furnaces you got? 2?
Heating facility.
There's no way it could be true. It's literally 2-family up and down. Those are the pictures.
Yes.
Well, it's also in the 50s was a big deal to lease out a room, which was part of another one that just considered like a leasable room. So it may be the case back then, we don't know.
Good point. I mean, regardless, I think, like I said, I think that this is, a good, like
Just an example for you.
a legit application, regardless of the decision the board makes. I think that, given the facts laid out in front of you,
Yeah.
you have to go through the test, but.
Okay. Okay.
These are ways for this.
Oh, gentlemen.
Good question, Rob.
Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Wilkinson while we're?
Not that I can really, he's gonna really be able to answer.
Yeah.
So he had some paper showing how much it cost to turn it into.
Yeah.
He emailed that to me. I'll be 100% honest, I thought this was completely cut and dried. Based on what I saw, so I didn't print it out, now I can't find the, sure, guy, stuff. He does have paperwork to show that the cost of the rate factors.
Yeah.
And then the loss of rent.
Right.
I think if the board were inclined to grant this application, and that, please don't take that as my position, but that property class code would, Mr. Wilkinson would need to address that for taxing purposes.
Yeah,
Yeah. And maybe back taxes, because there's two people living there.
I would not just, I
I
mean,
mean,
it's,
no, I'm
that's $46,000.
not running for public office or anything.
And comply with any rental permit laws
Yeah.
or.
Yeah, we're gonna have to comply with any rental.
He does have an active rental permit.
Okay. So he's got an active rental permit. He's at least right next door to another multifamily. This has been a multifamily of higher density since at least 1952.
Yeah.
And that far back is marked as an apartment house. The person that we trust to do the inspection and stuff has recommended that we do a use on it.
I think we've done our diligence, you know, in comparing, if somebody walks in
Right.
a month, 2 months from now saying, you did this, where I think we've clearly established, as we did in the floral example, that this is a unique situation, as they all are,
Mhm.
and that there isn't going to be somebody coming in and saying, you did it for him.
Yeah, well, once again, Flora was a lot different than
Yeah,
this.
and that's my point is that I think this is different, and the next person that comes in to try to do this for a variety of different backgrounds with the same outcome is also going to happen. We'll have to pour over it as we did the
My,
last one.
my wonder was, did we sell this property with the knowledge of having
I,
two apartments?
and I think that, not to, you know, say, but that could have been something that was overlooked by the legal office when that was done, or it was just routine to not do that.
How long ago did we sell this?
13, is that right?
2013 is when we sold this?
2013, that's correct.
Yeah.
No, I know who's.
There was no use photo at the time of the premises at the time or anything like that?
Not that I see the property, but I just know, so when,
It was a tax.
Go ahead, AJ.
Well, it looks like that Mr. Bryant, the guy who was foreclosed, just signed it over. In lieu of the taxes that he owed, which is pretty common, instead of
Yeah.
going through like, just give it to us. And then that was turned around and sold at auction. So I would imagine, I mean, I could be wrong, but I would imagine there was no inspection prior. You take property as is at an auction.
Yeah, they quit claim, a quit claim deed, and then they walk away from it, and then the city zeroes them out on what they owe.
Correct.
If a house becomes
That avoids
invalid,
us like going after them for costs and other penalties.
6 months,
Yeah,
it
Foreclosure.
loses its grandfathering, and I believe that's what happened
Yeah.
here.
yeah.
Yeah,
It became involuntarily vacant, it lost its grandfather. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's why this is labeled as a single family.
Yeah,
and I understand that part. Mr.
That's a-
Wilkins, you purchased this property?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Right.
Roy, I think Roy might be onto something there. And then when it was reoccupied, sitting in the single family zone,
right.
automatically got that single family tax.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I agree with that one, AJ. My question here is whether or not we sold it with the knowledge to the individual who was purchasing it, that there's 2 meters, 2 apartments, 2 kitchens, 2 bathrooms. You know.
That's I'd have to I'd have to ask my predecessor.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that the auctioneer is ultimately the de facto seller property.
Right. We have no process in the auction other
Yeah,
than hiring the auctioneer. Once we,
and that's part of what cities and taxing authorities have to do it that way, because lest there be some some, favoritism that gets done to any buyer or whatever. So I think there's that element, and the auctioneer has, and just like a realtor has to have,
And so my question to Mr. Wilk,
Can't sell it at one price for someone and,
yeah.
exactly.
you have done nothing with any of the meters and none of that, right? That's all been there since you've owned it.
What I wanted to interject was my experience in terms of buying properties at auction. When the city auctioned it, there were some where you could actually go and do a walkthrough where it was available to do that. There were others that weren't. If memory serves me correctly about this auction, somebody outbid me on a property that I wanted, that I walked through. And this was a second choice because I hadn't been able to see it.
Okay,
So I didn't have a lot of knowledge about this other than, what I saw on the outside. I didn't walk by it.
The public had
But it was out by.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you for your
and
understanding.
then one thing that catches me on this one is like our first question when we go through these is and if you compare it to Floral, is the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah,
And Floral was completely different.
yeah, that's all.
Well, yeah.
That was all single family homes with the exception, I think there's like what, 4
Yeah.
in that whole zone. Whereas this has got multiple stories and.
Right.
Always, yeah, so it's, looking at it just from that angle alone. Yeah, see what we get from some questions. Yeah.
You're right, Brett. Like that was a 72, 74 Floral. I mean, it's called 72, 74 Floral first, but there
Right.
are a couple of other homes in that neighborhood that were grandfathered in, and it looks like for whatever reason, this one was overlooked.
Okay, yeah. So it looks like in all reality, we should be changing the zoning there. Is what we should be doing.
Spots.
Well, we would just have to,
Yeah, not spot zoning it, but like that area.
Yeah.
Making it,
That's very, very.
well, we're due for a revamp of our comprehensive plan, so.
Yeah.
stay-
but I think we're good. Can I get a,
Make a
motion?
motion to close the public hearing, all second.
So
Ray,
all those in favor?
aye.
Okay, public hearing closed. We go down through these questions here and then we'll, go from there. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to the nearby properties will be created by granting of the variance. Can we use these 4 questions? Oh, this is a different one. That's right, because we're on use. Yeah, hold on. Applicant cannot realize a reasonable return as shown by the competent financial evidence. The lack of return must be substantial, and that is yes. Yes. The alleged hardship related to the property is unique. The hardship may not apply to a substantial portion of the zoning district or neighborhood. It is unique. Yeah. Yes, the requested use variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. No. That's the big one for me. The alleged hardship has not been self-created. I think it's self-created.
No, because he bought it
I
without,
bought it without.
he was very honest with us about that.
You bought knowing that one, thinking it was, right?
That was a 2-family, yeah. So, Andrew, on the use, on the variance on this one, this has got 4 questions. We have a yes, yes, no, no. Yeah. Anybody want to put a motion? If not, I'll do it. I motion that we grant a use variance for 92 Pendleton Street. I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. There we go. You were all set.
Thank you.
See, Mr.
I'll just
Jewett?
have you, sign a piece of paper.
That way, if there's any questions about it, when you make a motion, they come after that. There we go.
All right.
And everybody. Thank you, AJ.
Have a good night.
Feel better.
Feel better.
Working on it. Thank you.
No, it's gonna see.
Okay, so we've got, moving on to the January 22nd meeting minutes. Did anybody spot any problems with the minutes from January?
The only, I looked, and it's good about the, what we covered on his,
Right.
we detailed it very well.
No, I hadn't seen it.
So,
I wanted to see that in there, and that was good.
can I get a motion to approve the minutes in January?
Second. January meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and any, my only question in the old business before we adjourn would be, have we been in contact with our new member? Do we know what's going on?
All I can tell you is that was sick before, he was sick last time.
Okay, so we just have to spur him in whenever, the next meeting, and then, we'll go from there.
If there's just a discussion that we can have, recently, Saturday paper is building on a previous article on, not on zoning, non-conformance, what have you.
Right.
And I don't know whether we can, the mayor is the mayor, he is really is, but the way that he might approach future discussions with reporters is to say, anybody in the city, I think I might have, anybody in the city who wants to evaluate the conformity of the property, I think is free to come into this, and it's happened for people to come up here and say, is this property in conforming, does it conform to zoning? And I think that's something that maybe he might start to, just think it out loud. Help him out instead of getting quoted in the paper by,
We'll review whether that procedure exists.
Yeah,
seemed to me like, if somebody wants to come in and ask about, they have an application they can fill out, bring it to come to this meeting and propose,
There is an application, of zoning interpretation, and there's a few.
We've done that.
Absolutely do.
we've
yeah,
done.
we've
So,
done those interpretations, and Mayor Steve has been the chair of this board before, so he understands.
I'll have you sign
I just would remind you,
there.
in our own way, I see it all the time too, so I'll
Yeah.
remind you that still a possibility other than being quoted in the paper, because then you have everybody else in the neighborhood up there yelling and screaming,
Yes.
not knowing all the details.
Okay, how we,
That's all.
yeah, that's all. Anything else? Any other old business?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I need a second. You need a
I'll do it. I'll second it. Yeah.
There you go.